Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond BMR. Of course, I am your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Hey, no worries. For those of you that might have noticed, I changed the channel name just a little bit. It's now called Bigfoot Michigan Rob and Beyond. It kind of encompasses this show and the other shows because, we've expanded throughout the years. We don't just talk about Bigfoot and the cryptids. We do everything. Metaphysical, paranormal, UFO, alien, lost civilizations, all this strange phenomenon, right? And I've been doing that now for a year, so I said it was probably about time to add a little extra to the channel name. It doesn't affect anybody that's subscribed here. It's all the same across the board. Just had to add that flair because tonight is certainly Beyond BMR with my great guest, Casey Murphy. We're really going to go deep tonight. Thanks to everybody for coming on in. And if this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube and beyond. The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, Texas Front Porch, Donnie Cho Says Stuff, Monica Rollins, Our Paranormal World, Paranormal Paul just did a great show. Shout out to Paul. Truth or Tinfoil with Randy. We're on 7 days a week. Please turn on the alert bells. It does help promote book sales. I want to thank everybody out there for buying my books found on YouTube, found on Amazon. Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters. Book 1, Book 2, simply type Bigfoot Michigan Rob into your Amazon browser. They both will pull up, and leave a review for those that bought it. It's all analytics these days, and it does help promote sales of the books. I'm running a special. I said that last week. Get in touch with me for the holidays. So thank you for that. And glad to see y'all coming on in. Before we get started, don't forget, everybody, the super chat is open. Yes, it is. A great way to help support what we do around here. Donations certainly not expected. Always appreciated. Thank you in advance for that. Also, mateys you can see my skull cap. You can become BMR pirates. Join the many, join the few, depending on your point of view. Thanks to Brian for getting that started. Arr. Yeah, you get a picture of me with my bandana next to your name in the chat room. Thanks to Brian for that. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and we will continue on. I'm going to bring up the lovely Krista. You're on mute, Krista? You're on mute. Krista's on mute. There you are.
Not anymore. I said, I have 2 bones to pick with you.
Okay, what?
Okay, so you mentioned all the shows.
3 blondes, 1 mystery.
4 blondes.
4 blondes, 1 mystery.
You did not mention that one. That's a new channel for us.
I know it's a new channel. Tell them about it really quickly because it's not in my memory banks. It's the new channel.
Get it in there. So it's Brandy, myself, Natalie Smearman, and Mary Lynn Bass. We're just talking about all things weird. We're gonna deep delve into different instances and hauntings and Bigfoot encounters, things like that, and break them apart. So
yes, I did forget that because my spiel is all from memory. So I'm gonna have to write it down like 100 times.
Right. So now you got to add the 4 blondes in there.
I got to add that, and also have to remember to put in Bigfoot Michigan Rob and Beyond as my new channel name. A little something I threw in.
One more bone to pick with you.
And then what is that? Continue.
I'm not done with you yet, Rob.
Okay.
So today, when you mentioned our group chat, about changing your channel name.
Yeah.
And you said your new channel name is Rob Rules. It should say Rob, Krista, Brandy, and Monica Rules because we are all your co-hosts on different shows.
Oh my gosh, such a little nitpicker.
I am.
Rob Rules was just a joke, all centered around my ego ways.
We were just kidding.
I know you're kidding. I was kidding when I said Rob Rules. Who
I know you were. It was funny though.
It was spur of the moment.
Yeah, but you should have added, Krista, Brandy.
Yeah, I did. I was just haphazardly typing. Yeah, I was just typing along, but I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, I had to for the sake of my sisters.
The sisters. Well, I love all your sisters. They're all my sisters as well. You guys all rock.
Right.
And that's why we do what we do around here. Thanks to everybody for coming in. Mark Z Hammer, John Straw Dog, Diane Boss, Gary Senior, Mike Bothwell, Wizard Moon, Mickey G, Brown Dwarf, Brandy's in the house. Hey, Brando.
My boo is in the house.
Alabama, Cryptid, Mr. and Mrs. NAC's in the house. Lil Patty, as always. Mr. Finch, of course. Sir Brian, thanks for starting the show with that awesome super chat. Genocide's here. Oh, boy. Benno. Hi, Benno. How are you? I'm just looking at the people chatting. If you're chatting, I can give you a quick shout out here. That's really all the people chatting. We're close to 45 already in here. John Straw Dog. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, same people talking. I just
Thank you, Gary.
cool here. Whoa, Pops. Hello, Pops. Thank you, Mr. Spike Sr. We lovingly call him Pops.
Mhm.
He's such a fantastic moderator and friend, first and
Yep.
foremost. Thank you, Gary Sr., for that. So we have a great show tonight, Krista. I've been
Mhm.
excited. I've been trying to get this guy on. We've been in conversations for a while now, for quite
Cool.
some time. And we
Cool.
finally got our schedules together. We have Casey Murphy.
Cool.
We're going to talk a little bit about walking between the metaphysical, cryptids, the paranormal, all the crazy stuff that we do on the shows.
Let's do
So
it.
without further ado, I'm going to bring up.
Well, real quick, I just got to put this message up here. Sir Brian says, Bigfoot, Michigan, Robin, beyond. For the love of God, never mess with the ladies.
Brian, yes, I
Thanks,
don't.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian. And yes, I don't. I try not to. But every once in a while, Brian, I do like to, throw a little hijinks and hilarity
Mhm.
when I'm talking with the lovelies. Right. So, with
All
that
right, so
said,
now you can bring the guest up.
now I'll bring up Mr. Murphy.
Hello.
Kevin,
Hey.
welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here. Hello, everybody.
It's nice
Great.
to meet you.
Great to see you.
Right back
So-
at you.
Thanks.
So we've been talking for a little while off and on. You sent me, and by the way, Casey Murphy's got an awesome bio that I have in the description of the show. I don't read my guest bios because that's why I have them on. Because as I always say, Krista, the show is about the guest
Yep.
and their experiences. And so, Mr. Murphy, if you'd like to go through how you got involved with this phenomenon, man. I'll just use the word phenomena because you frankly encompass everything that embodies our show. And it's a pleasure. So let's just get on with it.
Well, my humble beginnings are just that humble. I was born out of wedlock to an Irish woman raised in an orphanage by Irish nuns. My birth certificate was literally forged during those politically correct times. To have a child out of wedlock, if you're a Catholic, was like a mortal sin. My
Mhm.
father was what used to be called a half-breed. Grew up on the res. So if you know anything about the Celtic people, especially the Irish, the metaphysical thread that runs through those people and their origin stories and their fables and myths is just resplendent with imagery and spiritual truths, where the myth literally embraces fact. And in my case, I was a solitary kid. I was born, I was only child, and I was drawn to ancient history, mythology at a very early age. I played sports like a lot of kids, football and boxing particularly. I was a gentle, reflective soul. I really found my home in archaeology, mythology, ancient history, historical things. And my mother was also, although on the surface she was a very conservative Irish Catholic, beneath that was running the mystical Gaelic strain that is so often associated with those people. My mother had to raise me at a time which I think was even more challenging than it is today to be a single parent. My mom and dad were separated when I was very young, and these interests in mythology and archaeology kind of segue quite naturally to reading things like heroic fantasy, sci-fi, things like that. To me, it was a natural segue, and I just couldn't get enough of it, man. And also, I need to make this clear because it's really important to the story.
Sure.
The thread, if you will, that of African American culture and life, the thread of it that runs through the fabric of my world is so intricately woven that if it was yanked, my entire universe would collapse. The woman that took care of me while my mother was at work was an African American, and I'm mentioning this because it leads directly to my first early metaphysical experiences, and in the way of what we call prescient dreams. I started working at an early age to help my mom out when it was just the two of us. I was working 40 hours a week at the time I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was about 17, I was working with the county in Maryland, Montgomery County, at a time it was really racially polarized, and not just the workplace, but Maryland and Virginia in general. I had grown my hair out after shedding my uniform. I had 4 years of ROTC. And in those days, if a pickup truck with country boys came by and saw you with long hair, it was usually a fight, especially if you're with people of African American heritage. We didn't have a Spanish speaking population in that area until the 80s. So I was born in Washington, D.C., but I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is a suburb just right over the district line.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working at this place at a time, as I said, it was really so polarized that literally all the country boys worked in the tree division and the brothers worked in the street division. And having had my share of fights already by the time I chose to work with the brothers, which is kind of ironic. I think a lot of people would think it would just be the opposite ratio, but it was not from my experience. Anyway, to make a long story not too much longer, they stuck me with a crew headed by a guy named Casey Maddox. And Casey was already in his late 50s, and he was from the deep South, very, very dark-skinned man, and he had a real antipathy towards white folks. He really put me through my paces. But showing up for work on time and keep up with guys that, were twice my size is the way you prove yourself and the way you get to a place of at least civility, if not respect. And eventually that grew into a real natural bond. And when he found that I was playing guitar, blues guitar specifically, and had the interest in kung fu that I did, he became very fascinated. So we started to hang out. And at the time, this is 1973. At the time that this was occurring, the show movie series Odd Couple was on, and I don't remember which was first, but I remember they attached that moniker to us almost immediately. And as time went on, I became very good friends with the rest of the guys in the crew, a couple of whom were Vietnam vets, and I was the only white kid. Like I said, in that about 50 guys divided in 5 and 6 man crews in the street division, about the same amount in the tree division. So in the course of which we got very close, and eventually I left after a couple of years to pursue music as a full-time endeavor. But I wanted to stay in touch with these guys. They'd become good friends. All the guys in the crew, all 5 of them. Casey was older and didn't really come over to visit in person. I lived in an all-black neighborhood, so the rest of the cats felt comfortable about visiting. Mm. And I'm telling you that in those days, in certain areas, people of color did not go by themselves.
Sure.
Okay, for any long periods of time. That was that bad at the time. The so-called border states were just as bad as Mississippi, and I played music in those places. I know what I'm talking about. Mm. Things are much different now, of course.
Hey, I ask you really quickly. I don't mean to throw you off. Mississippi and Robert Johnson.
Oh,
we can get in that a little later. I just said it.
Yeah. I wrote a story that has been gotten some track, in Hollywood, gained some traction in Hollywood. That's my take on the Robert Johnson mythology of the bluesman stealing the soul of the devil at the crossroads.
Yes.
And but getting back to this, to KC, I stayed in touch with these guys, and at some point, one of the guys in the crew, a guy named Mickey, was a Creole from New Orleans. I took him to see Eric Clapton, and I remember his reaction when he realized it and how many people in the audience were white, and it was a big surprise to him that many people liked blues music, which is what Clapton was playing at the time. At around that same time, maybe the next week, I had this dream, one of the first of these prescient dreams that's gone on, the most recent of which was just last December. And in this dream, I was back at work, but there was nobody there but KC. He was wearing a 3-piece brown suit with a pocket watch, a vest, just incongruous for a work setting, needless to say. And at the time, I didn't know I was dreaming. I just thought to myself, what is he doing wearing a suit, and where is everybody else? And as the thought came to me, Casey turned around, directly looked right at me, and his whole face was beaming with light. I wake up, and I've got goosebumps everywhere. I walk outside my house, and who was walking down the sidewalk but the guy I had taken to see Eric Clapton the week before? Wow. I'm thinking, what's he doing out here, especially by himself? And I asked him, I said, hey, Mickey, what are you doing here, man? And before he could answer, I said, I just had the strangest dream about KC. And he stopped, and he said, what was the dream? He was just staring at me. Always walking towards me and stopped very dramatically and stared at me. So I told him the dream, and he said, oh, my God. And he sat down on the steps outside my house that I was renting at the time and said, I don't know how to tell you this. I know you guys were close. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, oh, no. I said, what happened? He said, well, he went quick. We were doing work on the road, and he died, just fell over face first, and that was that. The reason I'm over here today is the first day we could view the body. He was buried in that 3-piece brown suit you just described with the pocket watch and the vest. And that was the first of prescient dreams that I was to have. And it led directly to my meeting and living with a medium of a very powerful nature. That happened just a few months later when I left the Maryland area for California. And the bookend to that, the most recent dream, to give you an idea, or I don't know, maybe I should let you ask the questions. I'm kind of new at this, so.
Well, you're doing fine to me. I'm getting some questions.
I'm a little nervous, yeah, but
I'm getting some questions.
You're doing great.
Yeah, you're doing fine. When you say prescient dreams, I'll ask you this for folks in this chat room and folks who are watching, listening at home. Prescient dream, what's the definition?
That's
Maybe
a good question.
Out some people.
I really don't know. I should probably carry that with me when I'm around these shows. That's the first time I've been asked it. But prescient is pre-RE. The prefix would imply before. So in a foreknowledge of events or things, or a dream that would coincide with something you're not aware of yet, and that's reflected in a dream that is born out later to be indeed true. How would I know? Well, he hadn't even know he was dead, much less what he was wearing. Why would it appear to me in the dream? Well, that's to come out later, as I had a dream about that guy 30 years later when I was in prison. But that's like I said, there's a lot of, we got a lot to cover. And I'm not really sure what order that should come in. I'll leave that to you, my host and hostess.
Sure.
But that was a profound experience, and it galvanized me, as you might imagine. I met Muddy Waters not long afterward, and I was very fascinated with the blues. At the time, it was kind of out of fashion a little bit, but you can't be a slave to fashion all your life, right? So I pursued it heartily, and had a meeting with him at the Celador, which was a nightclub in Washington, D.C. He was there with Pine Top Perkins and Willie Big Eye Smith, the legendary guys, and I was just fascinated. The experience, it was like meeting Paul Bunyan, or John Henry. It was just some mythical folk hero. And I was just starting to be able to get good at the guitar to actually express myself. And I remember that meeting, and it was, my mother called it praise from Caesar. Trying to figure out how to say it without sounding self-aggrandizing, but it was a positive experience. And I remember he asked me, he said, I don't want you to feel like you're put on a spot because I'm here, but who's your favorite blues man? And I immediately answered Howlin' Wolf. And he looked at me and he said, the most jealous-hearted blues man. I had to pull a blade on the wolf once, and launched into a story by getting in a knife fight with Howlin' Wolf. And I'm just trying to imagine these heroes of mine, getting into and doing something so, not so street. But of course, it makes perfect sense if you're a blues man, doesn't it? Anyway, it was a galvanizing experience. I wanted to go to Chicago, but my mother was terrified of me going to a place like that by myself. And, I want to respect my mom's wishes. And so she says, you have to leave the area. I'd already been away from home for a few years, but was close enough to bring her groceries, do stuff like that. But I needed to go, and I stuck my thumb out. 3 days later, I was in California, and there was a African American guy that was running a record store in Laguna Beach at the time called the Record Shed,
Okay.
and he was being threatened for dating a white girl, and he was getting death threats. And to me, it was so incongruous with my vision of California, which stands for so many things progressive. And I think it always has been that way. And certainly in 1976, which is when this was occurring, it wore that mantle, to all of us in the East Coast who thought of it at all. So I walked into the store and helped some surf kid that was working for Sam at the time find a record. And Sam realized my love and passion for music and my knowledge of it, and immediately fired his entire staff and put me on full time. And the deal was I would work for minimum wage, open the store, work from 10 to 2, take a break at on the beach, which is literally right down the sidewalk there at Main Beach, and then come back and work a shift at night, close it. And that I would work for free for the right to sleep in there, because I got there at 50 cents a guitar and a sleeping bag. And work was not easy to get at that time in Laguna. Anyway, that's how I started. Meanwhile, implicit in this whole dynamic is my convincing Sam to stand up to these racist bullies. And as I said, the thread of African American life and culture is, when I say it's interwoven in the fabric of my life, I'm not running for office here.
Sure.
There ain't no campaign speech. It's just karma is intricate. And so I said, look, these guys are bullies and they're not going to stop. And we met him at Main Beach, where the public restrooms are. And I never fancied myself a tough guy. I could barely handle rush hour traffic, but I could fight. And I learned how to do that early on where I lived, between the rednecks and the brothers, you just rite of passage. So to make a long story short, I challenged one of the guys there, and none of them wanted to fight. They just, and I'm hardly an imposing physical specimen, average sized guy, with no pretensions, being a badass. But I was incensed, as most of us are, and all decent people, when someone's being bullied, and for any reason, especially anyone imposing their will on somebody, because they think they're weaker or small, whatever it is. It's just, I always respond like a bull or a red flag. And if I
believe that's a red flag. There's somebody that doesn't have any self-esteem. And I got to ask you, because this is very fascinating in the music business, rock and roll, blues, dating back with some of the legends you've already mentioned, your Prescient Dreams. Do you think, and we hear this not just with rock stars or musicians and actors alike, movie stars, do you think there's an inherent paranormal element associated with all of these? Not all, a certain percentage.
Well, certainly, if you're speaking specifically about the blues experience,
okay,
that mystical thread lends itself to hoodoo, and I mean, the whole thing starts with Robert Johnson, right? I mean,
right.
And what was for the sake of those who aren't familiar with the stereotype of the blues man, that whole mythos behind him, he was a man that was laughed at by the elders, Son House, Charlie Patton, the guys of the day, the rulers of the day, the hotshot guitar player, gangster musicians of that time, because he was so bad, so laughable. And he disappeared for a year and a half, and when he reemerged, he played the way we hear him on the records. And a lot of that stuff is not accessible. Most people hear it and go, what's the big deal? You have to, I think, for those that have that initial reaction, you have to just be patient, listen to it, because you're hearing a guy that's playing a lot of things at once. He's like a one-man band. And Bach called the guitar the miniature orchestra, so it makes sense, but it's never more evident when the guitar is in the hands of a master like that. And he died under very mysterious circumstances. The fact that when he reemerged, his playing was so astonishing that the legend started, this guy must have sold the soul of the devil at the crossroads. And this was a fairly common mythology. It was something that bluesmen either boasted of or it was rumored about them. And he wasn't the only one. Tommy Johnson, well, there were many that was mentioned about. And the deal was you go to the crossroads at midnight with that intent in your mind.
Yep.
And a well-dressed black man appears, takes your guitar from you, tunes it up, hands it back to you. And, you can go back to Paganini and find this.
Sure.
This, and so the music with the devil, that the analogy is interwoven through much of our histories, But in this particular case, I was drawn to it you know, like a moth through the flame at the risk of sounding cliche, the blues. I was listening to it when I was 14.
Mhm.
I remember one of my mother's friends, he would just come back from Brazil and was listening to Bossa Nova, and he said, "Don't you like the Beatles and Motown?" I said, well, "Yeah, that stuff's great. But this is you bought this with your money. This is your record." I said, "Yeah." You don't like it? He goes, "Oh no, it's great." And I just bought the Howlin' Wolf London sessions, which was Howlin' Wolf with a bunch of white guys. But these were guys who could play. They're talking Eric Clapton and a couple of the Rolling Stones and Steve Winwood, this legendary guys
Right.
who were still in their prime. And it spoke to me, my idol was Dwayne Allman as I grew, because he was a Southern guy like myself, and I just could relate to so much about him. But I digress. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep
You're good.
myself reined in here. But the mythology is rich, and it encompasses so many features, so many aspects of life. The whole hoodoo bluesman mythos, and it's to a young impressionable kid, romantic as I think almost all of us are, certainly at a young age. It,
Mhm.
it, it really called to me. And when I met Muddy Waters, a more regal man I have yet to meet. I've met a lot of famous people in my life, um, but I've only really been in awe
Mhm.
twice. Once was meeting Muddy Waters, and then when I met Roberto Duran, who was a boxer, of course. But
No
um,
mas.
yeah, what'd you say?
No
No,
mas, the infamous fight.
if that's the only way
Thomas.
you recognize that guy,
I just
man,
popped in my
you
head.
and
He's
me
a great fighter.
gotta talk.
He's a great fighter.
Talk about coming back. What kind of human being could come back after saying no mas, after all the shame that was heaped on him? People
Mhm.
threw rocks at his house in Panama. They
I know
poisoned his
that's great.
pets. Oh yeah, he came back and won not one but two more world titles, and at weight divisions 20 and 25 pounds above what he was in his
I know.
prime.
Hey, I do have much respect for him. That's the first thing that popped in my head, Kevin. So yeah.
Well, believe me, if you had met him like I did, you would have respect for him. He had they both had a vibe about them that all people that I've ever met that were unique to their self, their purpose, and their identity have that vibe. We all meet people who have a thing about them that draws us to them, but these guys had it in spades. And as I said, an impressionable youngster, and I matured very fast, very quickly in some ways, and was very slow to mature in others. Um, but getting back to Sam, I mentioned Sam and this thing with the bullies for a reason, because after that happened, after these guys backed off of him, Sam hugged me and said, you don't know what that means to me.
Mhm.
And I said, well, if I got a pretty good idea. When you get to know me better, you'll know why. Not long after, maybe a day or two, well, actually, right then and there, he said, there's someone I want to introduce you to. And we had gone to breakfast together, because when he wasn't sleeping with his gal, he was sleeping in the next aisle over in the record shed. And we were, swapping lies, as we
Yeah.
slept
Of
in the
course.
night.
Yeah.
And as you imagine, we became pretty close pretty quickly. He says, a gal I want you to meet, she's the hostess at the Jolly Roger, where we go every morning. And true to his word, a day or two after the incident happened, we went in there, and her name was Meredith. That was the name she was going with. It wasn't a professional name at the time. And she was a world famous medium from a long line of mediums, the gift handed down from mother to daughter, going back many generations in France. Her own mother, like my mother, was a traditional Catholic, and the gift, as they called it, frightened her. But Meredith was a hippie like me, just an older. She was 29. That was 21 at the time. And she was a teacher for me in many ways. And we moved in together almost immediately after dating, just a few times. And when
Mhm.
I shared the dream, the first of many dreams like it that I share with you tonight, the one with KC appearing in the three-piece suit, she just simply looked at me and she said, well, I just had a feeling about you. I've been around a lot of sensitives in my time, but you have it in spades, but you don't really know it.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what to make of that, man. I mean, I was with my first official living girlfriend, and women for me were the last piece of the puzzle. I was a slow starter, but a pretty quick learner.
Aren't they all?
But I never fancied myself the player. As I've had some friends that were just that. I just
Right.
wanted to find a gal who could somehow manage to live with a musician. And anyway, Meredith and I became very, very close, very, very fast. And
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of my Christian friends that have been had a lot of objections about the concept of mediums. It speaks of it in the Bible. Being raised a Catholic, the Bible doesn't really uh, jam down our throats in the way it is other Christian groups.
Right.
Christ is is important, if not more so than any other, Christian, interpretation. But my mom did not have me read. I had a catechism on Saturdays where the nuns hit us with rulers and made us memorize
Oh
scripture.
yeah, yeah.
But excuse me. Um, so this was something that she was very open to all the great teachers, from the saints, you know,
Mhm.
uh, the so-called Christian saints to Buddha, Krishna. She had nothing blacking her up, but Jesus was her guy. And she had pictures of Christ, the little statues all over the place. And whenever she had one of her sessions, she would always start by invoking Jesus. She would say, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, saints of our religion, Jesus Christ, we ask you into our home and hope that you will manifest your presence. And in doing so, expedite our spiritual journey and really get in. And this would go on for sometimes minutes
Okay.
until she would stop suddenly. And at which point you could literally feel the silence. And the first time this happened, pardon me, I'm sorry, did someone say anything? Anyone interrupt?
I don't know if you said something.
Uh,
Mm-mm.
I know.
There's somebody talking out in the garage. Can you hear that? I'll mute.
Not really. A little.
So she would, every night she did these sessions, she would turn off all the lights in our apartment. And at the time we lived on Chiquita Street in North Laguna. At a time when we could afford an apartment for $250 with an ocean view, if you can imagine. And she would turn off all the lights except for one, in which she would put like a towel over it, so you could see a little bit, but it was obviously dark in the room. And the first manifestation I noticed, beside, as I said, actually hearing the silence, was the visual stimulation or image of like what heat waves. When I looked around the room, it looked like there were heat waves. Where you see heat waves in a summer day. And then, I was sitting directly at like a 45-degree angle directly from across from the sliding doors, which looked west out to the ocean. And she was to my left. And when I looked over at her entire image was black with like a yellow nimbus around it, like the way you see a negative from a photograph. And I remember looking over there and thinking, what the? And I wasn't high in anything, just I'm sure some people think, oh, I've heard this guy before. No telling what no, nothing. I had gone, when I got to California, uh, after years of smoking weed off and on, I was never a big drinker, but I quit everything to get level because I was going through a difficult time before I got there and I wanted to reboot, at level 1. And so I wasn't hiding anything. So I look over at her and I say, oh my God, I was just fascinated. And when I'm about to describe, I would raise eyebrows in any room, but I was never any hint of fear or awkwardness or anything like that because the room was saturated with the vibration of peace.
Mm-hmm.
When she said those invocations, those prayers, she meant it. And everything that we are taught and that what we learn, experience, we know the intent is everything, and everything we do.
Absolutely.
And
Yes, it is. And I've been schooled that by Krista and Randy since I met them decades ago, it seems. Yes.
4 years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
whether you're talking about the Catholic Church or
Yeah.
Rosicrucians or act of magic, everything is intent. And what's the act of contrition? Oh my God, I'm heartily sorry for having offended thee, and I detest all my sins because of thy just punishment. But most of all, because it offends thee, my God, who are all good, deserving of all my love. I firmly resolve, with the help of thy grace, to sin no more and to avoid the intentions of sin. So that being said, she got into it because she was that. And she had like a Madonna kind of vibe about her that everyone felt when they were around her. She just was innately good. She wasn't perfect. She had her issues, but her, once again, her intention, the driving thing that motivated, that moved her through this world was one of peace and goodness. And you felt that when you're around her. And when she would get into prayers. And everyone was it was all spontaneous. I mean, there was nothing rehearsed. I was with her every night that these sessions went on. So I'm looking over her, get back there, looking at, she has this, her whole figure face looked black with this yellow form around it, like a negative from a photograph. And as I was staring at it,
really quickly, you're saying you're looking, her face looked black.
her face and figure was, just imagine if it all of a sudden just turned black. You couldn't see anything, just a black. Just see the image, but with a yellow form around it, like a yellow stripe around the whole figure, around the head, around the body, all the way, just like that. Like a body, and like when you see a show and a body's been some person's been killed, and you go back and you see the form and it's in chalk around the ground or the floor, like that. Only the chalk line is yellow and her image is dark black color. So as I'm gazing at it, it starts to dissipate in front of me, and her own features become revealed. As I continue to gaze at her face, it starts to molecularly rearrange itself while looking at her. Now, I had taken hallucinogens. I've taken peyote with some of the Native American brothers, and I've done plenty of LSD in the old days. And the first thing that I remember of the incredible majesty of sound, of music, was the visual phenomenon, And but I'm not high on anything, and I'm just watching this. Her face literally started to move, vibrate. The skin started to vibrate, almost like bubble, and it reformed itself right in front of me until she looked completely like another woman.
Wow.
And I'm talking about just as distinctly as you're looking at my face right now, even more so because I'm right next to her, only a few feet away from her. And this image held for about 5-6 seconds before morphing into still another image of another woman. And that held itself for a few seconds before morphing into still another. And now, these images were all of females, at least at this particular occasion, and they were so beautiful, they didn't look human. That's the only way I can describe it. Now, I fell asleep, and every time she did this session, I would be asleep in a chair within 10 or 15 minutes. And it was so frustrating. I remember when she woke me the first time, I said, how the heck did what? I mean, she just laughed. She goes, you're being healed. And I said, oh, wow. Okay. I can work with that. And like a child, I said, can we do this again tomorrow? And she said, sure. I knew that when I met you, that you were destined to witness this. I just don't know why yet.
Yeah. Question. Go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah, Kevin, do you think when you seen the yellow around her, do you think you were possibly reading her aura?
I don't think so, because I know that I'm unusually sensitive, but I don't have the ability to read people's auras. I can when I'm in an enhanced state, like a lot of people can. But no, I don't. Don't make me tell that lie, as they say in the hood. No, I don't think I was reading their aura. I was seeing just what what was really amazing to me was, and when she asked me, she said, well, what do you think you're seeing? Because I asked her, I said, why am I seeing these images? She says, what do you think you're seeing? I said, I think when you get in this state, you are creating a magnet that draws to you other equally gifted, receptacles. But why would they all be women, and why would they all be so beautiful? They don't look mortal.
Right.
That's the only way to say it, is how that's, I mean, they just,
you mentioned
earlier comes to mind. And she laughed and says, well, I don't know, because I'm out when that happens. I'm not there. I'm gone. But it's interesting that you interpret it that way. And I'm not sure it's far from the truth.
Right. Hey, I was going to ask you too, I guess you kind of brought it up a little bit. Did not look human. And I guess you kind of described it. It's like
beauty beyond words.
Was just like something, it's not of this world, I guess, right?
Beauty
came from a different realm.
It's too hard, almost hurt to look at.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it just was too much. But, I'm in a state myself, elevated by her virtue of her own vibration, and where she called up, and I'm in this elevated state, and it was a tremendous gift, and I didn't feel particularly worthy of it, but it's happening, and now I was to find out later that my own mother, despite her real conservative Christian Catholic background, being raised by nuns from the age of 6 to the age of 17, when they had to leave the home, She was, this rosary on my neck. This is, you're not supposed to really wear rosaries on your neck, but this is sorry,
I got it.
my godmothers, who kept my mother safe and relatively sane in that awful place. And you talk about, I was talking about, African Americans and the role. Irish people, the best kept secret in this world is what happened to the Irish, the Holocaust. Now, the fact that for 500 years before the first slave was taken to the Americas, the Irish had already been a colony. 500 years. Okay.
Wow.
The penal laws, the criminal laws that made them indentured servants, that made them slaves in their own country. It's the best kept secret in Western history. And my mother, I mention this because it plays into everything that is part of my story and my mother's. But I think that if you accept the notion of reincarnation, which I fought vigorously for many years, I just didn't want to embrace it. But it's the only thing that really makes sense. Why one kid's a chemist and the other kid's a musician, and why this kid's an athlete and that kid's a serial killer, and that it's just we pick up where we left off, like grooves in a record. And when we are exposed to the world, we play our music, what we are, lifetime after lifetime, how we like our food, our sex, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things are just reflections. None of them really reflect the true essence of what we are. We're just so much more than that. But that's the sleeping beauty of our soul, our awareness. Mm-hmm. And, the creator, I believe, created projected this creation, and it was its will to do so. And the first laws were yin and yang, I believe, and then light and sound, and it goes from there. Mm-hmm. But the creator wants the creation to evolve. Jesus and our Father love us as much as they love the greatest saint. Mm-hmm. So we're all here. We all play our role, and the more conscious we are of that, I think the greater responsibility. Yeah, but again,
I can agree with that. I like that. I think part of what you see was almost when the beautiful images were like almost like a divinity, right? And what you say, I agree a lot with what you say, and you talk about the record spinning on the turntable. And you pick up the needle, let's just say, and then it stops, and you put it down, then a new story begins, or a new chapter begins.
Right.
And you've got a chapter where you briefly mentioned to me, and we didn't get into, about ectoplasm, where you thought that it led to gargoyles.
So much more to come, trust me.
And werewolves.
Mm-hmm. Werewolves and listen, gargoyles. This woman, her gift was now she was part of a metaphysical organization called the Church of Mind Science in Long Beach.
Okay.
It was headed by a guy, I'm not sure I should say his name because there was a lot of scandal attached.
You don't have to, yeah.
She left that place because she felt they were using her gift for financial aggrandizement. She said, it's one thing to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
It's another thing to do what I found that they were doing. And she had left and was working as a hostess at a restaurant. She had a degree. I needed to get away from the area, from all those people. I needed to start over. And, God, her gift was a profound one. The ectoplasm. Well, I could jump ahead to that if you wish. It's hard to follow this sequentially. Remember it, so it was half a century ago, the beginning of it. But the most recent, the Prescient Dreams, was as recent as a few months ago. But ectoplasm, one day after doing these sessions every night in the room, we went out to dinner at a place in Dana Point, which is just south of Laguna. It was called the Captain's Anchorage. And we came back. We thought the place was on fire. We thought that there was smoke everywhere in our flat. And so I went rushing to the phone to call the fire department, and she went to the kitchen to see what she had left on because we couldn't find the source of the smoke. And as I'm giving the address to the fire department, which is only a block away, a little tiny fire department, but it served us well. She yanked the phone away from me and she said, "This has not been a prank. We're really sorry. We just made an awful mistake. There's something that was left on and we've taken care of it." And it took her a few minutes to convince him. And then she hung up the phone and started laughing. And I said, and I turned around and I'm looking back. Now, to appreciate, if you walk in to our apartment, the kitchen was to the right, and that's where I headed, where the phone was also. And I turned around, looking out where the sliding doors are, where she would sit, and I could see the ectoplasm dispersing, but I didn't know what it was. I just like said, well, why are you laughing? I mean, I got a great sense of humor, you know. Tell me so we both know. And she says, it's ectoplasm. She says, I'm amazed it hasn't manifested before. We do this every night for weeks. And I said, ectoplasm? And she said, I thought you said you read it. And I told her, and it was true, in a little Silver Spring, Maryland library, I had read a lot of ritual magic and Aleister Crowley. I mean, I was a kid. You know, I was fascinated with magic and all things magical. And the studies of mythology were, to me, were, as I said, a natural segue to a lot of things that came to me later. And so I had read a bit, and I knew the term, but, you know, I was just a kid, just a babe in that world. And in many ways still am. And she said, it's ectoplasm, it's ectoplasm. And she hugged me, and she just kept laughing. And she just explained to me that with any powerful medium, this is a physical manifestation of the spirit,
Mhm.
and it often comes out of their fingernails or sometimes out of their mouth, you know. But I never saw any of that. That never happened when I was with her, and we did this every night for a few months. As incredible as it sounds. At one point, she said to me, "You know, when I met you and you related that dream, I thought it was so powerful. I knew that you're going to play a role potentially in this world, depending upon the decisions you make, the time ahead. And I promised you and myself I would do this every night that you asked. But you're not going to grow spiritually. You're not going to evolve just witnessing phenomena. You've got to work at this, like you do your guitar and your kung fu and your chess, and you know." And I said, "Well, how do I do that? I'm not exactly Mother Teresa." And she laughed. She said, "Well, you're a good soul, Kevin. But here, I want you to read something." She came to the back of our went to the back room and came out with a book called Autobiography of a Yogi. She said, "I want you to read this book, and when you're done, I want you to get the meditation lessons. For the amount of money you spend taking me to dinner, you can get the entire course." These people are a nonprofit organization, and they're just about spreading enlightenment. And these are, I knew that pranayama was the same as what my master had called kung fu. And I told you briefly when I was working at the county, I started studying kung fu with a real master. At the time, I don't think, well, that's not true. I recognized that he was somebody special right away, but I was just learning so much at the time. Kung Fu in 1973, most people on the East Coast thought Kung Fu was part of a menu, and I was certainly one of them. But I had just read a review of Bruce Lee, the Little Dragon. It was a book written about him. He had just died about 3 months before, so I had that experience. So I was familiar with the concept of qigong, the marshaling or the cultivation of the life force through certain conscious exercises, most of them breathing exercises. And I knew that pranayama was the Indian version of that, you know, just different language because of the culture. And she said, you want to work at these techniques, these will spiritualize you. These will help you drop the gross, you know, the lesser parts of your being and enhance, you know, it gives energy. What you give energy, we give life to. So I recognize an implicit in this was a spiritual contract of sorts, you know. Now I wasn't really, I'm an Irish Catholic at the time and still am in many ways. And I wasn't sure about what I meant, what about that concept of a guru. You know, the notion of such was not utterly foreign to me because I had a very similar dynamic with my kung fu teacher. You know, it was like a father to me. My own father abandoned us, went back to the res where, unbeknownst to us, he had another family. And so I didn't have a father, you know, growing up. And like many kids without one, you lean into other older male figures, trying to find someone for that guidance and how to be a man, you know. And I work in, you know, blue collar jobs with adult men, you know, most of it black. You know, I'm like 14 years old. I had to grow up fast. And, these guys were, I have to say that, you know, I had a lot more flack from the rednecks than I ever did from people from minority communities. That's just my experience. I was very carefully. I mean, there was always a challenge that was going to come every now and then, more of a rite of passage than something specifically racial. But I just wanted to make that clear. That's been my experience. Anyway, Meredith was quite a teacher, and So I got the book, read the book, and hailed the book, and I saw how in India they revered Christ as much as we did here in the West, and that was a real revelation for me. Uh, I was astonished at the reverence of what they afforded our saints. The devout Hindus were familiar with minor saints in the Christian because most of these people are very devout and they're loyal to their own belief system, but they're open to any real sincere seekers of God. That was my experience with my first meeting with Hindu people. And I hate labels, but they're necessary when we talk and share things with one another. We need categories for the sake of convenience to share experiences and ideas. And so living with Meredith was a real crash course in metaphysics. My mother came barreling out to the West Coast to see her little boy was shacked up with, and in the middle of dinner, my mother's talking to Meredith, and Meredith said, "By the way, Rita, why didn't you tell Kevin about his Native American heritage?" Because at the time I thought it was half Italian. I thought the reason I could get so dark, unlike my mother, was because I was Italian. And when I finally was told the truth, my mom said, "Well, it was hard enough being Irish. I wasn't about to tell people your father grew up on a reservation, for Christ's sake." So this is a part of the story. I'm sorry I'm jumping around so much, but this is kind of new to me. I've been in a few shows, but it's all still pretty new.
No, you're doing all right. Just pull it all together and reverting back to, again, the original question. I'm sure you're getting there. You're doing fine.
I'm hoping
regarding the gargoyle, the werewolf correlation with all the.
Well, that happened after I had been witness to, let's say, a couple of weeks of almost exclusively these female images coming over her face, and I mean just as distinct as I said as you're looking at me. I mean the detail and God, they were so beautiful, man. And one time, I don't know how long, maybe 2 weeks or so, when one night after the image of the negative, the black with the yellow around, that changed. And instead of that dissipating and seeing her own face, what I saw was like a gargoyle-looking thing emerging.
Mm.
And it there wasn't a portal or a door where this thing stepped from into, but all of a sudden this thing's in the living room where we are. And I you can imagine my reaction. I wasn't afraid. Like I said, the only reason I wasn't is because the fervor with which she spoke these prayers every time she started a session. I just felt totally safe. But my God, I mean, it was just as distinct as everything else. And the first times I saw images were like gargoyles, and that, and I also saw what I would call, I didn't know what a dogman was. I look at werewolves to me, just as distinct as everything else.
Right.
And just staring at me, not moving around, not doing any threatening, just staring at me. As if she had opened a window into another dimension, which is undoubtedly what she did. Oh, yeah. And this was a recurring theme. This went on for months. And at the time, I was fascinated with astral projection. I was just trying to get out of Dodge, more ways than one. And I knew that it was possible. I had read enough to know that there were techniques for this too. And she said that, well, it's really not that hard. Whichever you're convinced, really convinced, your subconscious as well as your conscious is going to manifest. And that's when I started to realize some of the basic laws that we take for granted today, 50 years ago. I mean, thought plus conviction equals manifestation. And things manifest in time and degree according to how those thoughts are sped with conviction. And that was sorry, but
no. So you believe we can? We talk about this quite often on the shows. A lot of us believe that we can manifest certain things. Sometimes it comes to fruition, and other times it doesn't. And it's funny you mentioned that because it's kind of a hot topic with us. So you believe that?
Oh, absolutely.
You've done that yourself, and you also believe that you've had an out of body astral.
I've had two the same night. But remember Christ said, and I think the first time I saw it was actually in Revelations, "It's not written that ye are gods and children of the Most High." So we all of us are heir to this divinity. In the most humble, lowest expressions of us are heir to that. potentially to
Yes.
that those wonders, But what we give energy to, we give life to. So what a man sees and pursues reveals his true face, as my kung fu instructor once told me, and we're doing that all the time, aren't we?
Mhm.
So yeah, I she taught me a technique to do it, and I faithfully practiced it every night. And I remember after like maybe a week that she questioned me, asked me how I was progressing, and I was very frustrated. I said, "Well, I get this feeling that I'm kind of like in a bathtub, like weightless,
Yeah.
but that's all that happens." And she said, "Are you sure?" Because I felt for sure that things would come to you a little quicker. So I think you're a little more evolved than most, and paraphrasing. And I said, "Well, that's," and then, "Oh, there's other thing that's happening. I forgot to tell you." I think this was the second time she'd asked me, and she said, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "I get this like funny buzz, like right here." And she
Mm.
started laughing. She says, "Oh my God, he's not progressing. His third eye's opening up, but he's not progressing."
Should I? Yeah. Right.
And she said, and I once again, I was amused, and she was amused, but I was still frustrated because I hadn't gotten there. So we exited. I got in a really bad car accident. I was teaching her how to drive a stick shift. And after that accident, we moved from Laguna Beach up to Long Beach. Her mother had become diagnosed with cancer. So she moved in with her mom, and I got a place in the YMCA, which at that time was renting rooms for fairly cheap prices. And boy, that was Long Beach was a very tough neighborhood at the time, 6th and Long Beach Boulevard. There were 3 people murdered in that building I lived in the 9 months I was there. And it was it was like an outtake from the Twilight Zone, but it was a perfect place for me to be a hermit, and I practiced these techniques that she taught me I continued to practice them every night faithfully. And one night, I there was a Denny's across the street. I'd never heard of Denny's. I was living back east, but there's one across the street from the YMCA, and I got up and I was very frustrated because I still couldn't get beyond the feeling of floating. And I went across to get something to eat. When I walked in, everyone in the place looked the way people look like when you're first coming on to hallucinogens. They all looked distorted. Their faces are all. And I went, "Oh my God!" I ran to a payphone, which they still had in those days, and I called Meredith. And she starts laughing again. She says, "Well, you wanted to pull back the curtain." She says, "You're doing these exercises every night." She says, "That's what you're getting, more and more sensitive." I said, and she just laughs. "Just go back to your room. Tomorrow night, I'm going over to the hospital. I'm going to double shift, and you could stay at my place, and I think you might have more success in that environment." You talk about a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The next night, lying in her bed, I went to sleep early for me at 10:30. I've been a musician all my life, and the old days we'd gig until 1:30, 2:30 in the morning, and now gigs are a lot earlier, but my internal clock is still there. So I go to sleep at 10:30, and I wake up at 1:30, and I could feel that the room was just charged. Is the way I could describe it. I looked at the clock, which had that peculiar light to it that things have when you're
Mm-hmm.
pulling back that curtain, or when it's been pulled back for you. And everything in the room. Now the lights were off except for the clock and something else that had a light built into it. But there was a glow in the room, and I just immediately knew I was supposed to try the technique. So I did. I sat back and bam. I didn't have the feeling of going through a tunnel or a tube like so many people describe. I did not have that. I did not look back and see my body. Clearly, one minute I was in bed, and the next minute I was in a valley lined by mountains, and right in front of me at 12 o'clock, as I say, is the moon. It was huge, huge, and it was so beautiful. And I remember thinking, "Oh my God, I did it!" And I thought, well, I know that outside the body, thought is immediately creative. Whatever you will is manifest right there. So I willed myself to levitate, and I did. And
Wow.
there's the sensation of the realization of it was so shocking that drew me right back to my body. And I got up, waist up in bed. I went, "Oh, I blew it. I was right there, And I went, "Gosh, darn it." And I went back down and went right back out again.
Man, I got to ask you, what did it feel like when you're out of your body, you look back, your body wasn't there.
I didn't see it. I didn't have that sensation of looking back. I
Did
didn't go
you,
through a tunnel. I was 1 minute I'm in bed lying
Wait.
down in the posture, I have to do the technique. The next, I'm in a valley on the other side.
Did it feel like you were like we're speaking now? Did you feel physical, or did you feel something, or like a
Just like we do right
dream?
now. Pure consciousness. You're not conscious
Man.
of your body, but because you're used to seeing one,
Yeah.
you're moving with one. You're seeing your arms and legs because that's what you're used to. But
Mhm.
if that helps, I hope that answer your question.
No, I mean it's like I'm trying to put together. Okay, it's not like a dream, a vivid dream. It's like we're speaking right now. That was your feeling.
Exactly.
Like you were just there.
Fully
It was
conscious.
you,
Yeah.
and you're doing your thing, and you're there.
Right.
Wow.
But the thoughts, your emotions, you have to rein in because any powerful emotion in your initial stages, as I certainly was, will draw you back to your body. You have to
Mhm.
learn control. And as I said, I was very depressed. I went, oh God, But when I laid back down, because when I first was drawn back to my body, I sat up from the waist up, and I was looking around the room, and damn, I'm back here again, And I went back down and went right back out again. Only it was in a different place. And to describe the lower astral, which is what I believe where I was, because I didn't see an old wise man with a beard giving me the secrets of the universe, and I didn't see angels, or I was in a place that looked like a Maxwell Parrish painting, only come to life. It was just beautiful, man. I mean, the
Wow.
mountains, the moon. I just felt stress, rid of any anxiety or anything. I was just
Mhm.
beauty was optimum, and freedom was what I felt,
Wow.
and when I laid back down, when I went back out a second time, different thing altogether.
Mm.
And I realized years later that those two experiences were a reflection of what my life was to be later. And when I came back the second time, when I came back out of the astral, I had the feeling of moving down a path that was lined with trees on either side, with very kind of ominous, these spooky branches with no leaves, very austere kind
Mhm.
of environment. And although I wasn't walking per se, I had the feeling of walking because what you're used to, you manifest in that place, because it's thought is immediately creative. Like I said, it's, you have your sword, here's a sword, you envision a flower, it's a flower, and that's how it works. And
Mhm.
so it was ominous. And I knew that it was a sign, so to speak, but I didn't have the wisdom, needless to say, to understand it. That realization again drove me right back to my body.
Do you think that you bring up ominous? Do you think that? Okay, I know several people that I've spoken with on this aspect, astral projecting. Do you think that it's a, it's kind of a dangerous situation where we don't know where we're going or who's controlling us?
There's a
Like,
lot
it
of
could
different.
be something nefarious, perhaps taking over our subconscious.
Oh, I believe that is certainly possible. I believe that the intent you have when you go there and your belief system you carry with you on the way to that encounter, that has everything to do with what you experience when you're in that place. Can bad things happen to good people there too? Absolutely. But it was not my experience or people that I know that have done it. Meredith could do it at will. Um,
Mhm.
she said that your vibrations drew to you, as they do here in this life, in the
Yeah.
physical material, people and experiences that correspond to your vibrations, your who you are, what My master used to say, "What a man sees and pursues reveals his true face."
Mm.
You create a magnet for your life by that which you focus on and you make real. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot that people should approach these things with a deep spiritual anchor to be very sure, lean into your faith before you do anything like that. I don't
Mhm.
like to program people with fear. There's a particular host
Thank you. Appreciate that.
pardon me?
I was telling Josh, thank you for his chat.
Thanks, Josh.
Oh, hey,
Appreciate
Josh. Hey, man.
It's best.
Um, there are those who say that there's a lot of ways that you can be inoculated with fear, and fear is another magnet. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans that go on in that place. As fate would have it, or karma, if you like. Um, when I read that book, Autobiography of Yogi, as I said, the most amazing thing to me was the devout, the feeling of deep respect and spiritual regard that people from India have for Christ and the relevance of which they place it. And in that particular, Yogananda came here to create an organization where Christianity and Hinduism would be a mirror of one another. And he wrote a book at the request of his own guru to demonstrate the unity of these major religions, those two in particular. And that's what he did. And
Mhm.
to me, that was a very
Josh,
profound.
want to thank you for the books too, by the way, Casey. I'm sorry to
Ah,
interrupt.
you're quite welcome. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to beat that to death last night. That was a message that was directed. That was for Anthony, you know, and I mean that in a good way. But I saw that I had sent him. And now we're talking about, you know, everything's reflected by its own mirror image. I had this book he's referring to. At least one of them was written. There's the very book I'm talking about, and that is the Holy Science. It was a treatise on the yugas, the eras of the world, and also an interpretation of Revelation. And it was one thing that really spoke to me was wise men interpreting from an outside the Christian, construct, as it were, interpreting Scripture. And I don't, truth has a ring to it. We say, right, when you're
Mhm.
around certain people and you feel their fervor. We're talking about God. And more than anything, that person loves God, and that is what
Mhm.
really
Sure.
resonates with us. The sincerity. And that book, the Autobiography of Yogi, in that book, why I was making that point was because I just happened to open it up, if you believe in coincidence, which I never have, to the chapter on the astral, in which
Wow.
Yogananda's guru has already passed over and reappeared to Yogananda in his hotel room with a deep
Wow.
and intricate dissertation of the astral planes and all and how each person goes according to their image, to their energy, their character, and
Mhm.
how varied it is. And
Yeah.
it was fascinating that to me, because I was so obsessed with astral projection at the time, and to open to that very chapter that describes in such meticulous detail. Um,
Mhm. That
that
was not a coincidence. I agree. I don't believe in coincidence
I
either.
don't believe that's just a
Mhm.
cigar is a cigar. Sometimes I know it's just a glib phrase. Everything is connected, everything else, and we all know this on some level.
Absolutely.
How we're able to interpret and act on it. That's another conversation. But I certainly was. The bells are all going off with me,
Mhm.
and the the book that Yogananda's guru wrote, which is called The Holy Science. His name is Sri Yukteswar. Sri SRI is like a term of respect, like a sir or something. And to give you an idea of the elevated place that these guys get to, and keep in mind they're all truly great people, spiritual people.
Mhm.
They're humble. They don't do book tours at Oprah. These guys live in humble obscurity for the most part.
Sure.
And when this guy passed, he did what the Mahasamadhi. He was informed by his teacher, your time's up. You
Mhm.
did what you came here to do. They sit down in the lotus position and they just go. And when
Wow.
they found his body, it was literally in the lotus posture. And Yogananda was at the time in the America giving a lecture. Um, and he was, of course, crestfallen that his guru was gone. He wasn't there when it happened. So when he came back to view the body, it was sitting just like this in the lotus posture. And that's how they go out. And
Wow.
my master used to tell me, my kung fu teacher, that to reach ascendancy in the kung fu circles, when you really reach the high pinnacles, when you can stop your heart and breath at will. The mind, the brain doesn't die from lack of oxygen because
Mhm.
it's resupplied with a cosmic force that is rotated through the breathing techniques. Because when you do these techniques, you inhale and as you
Yep.
visualize the energy going up the spine, and you exhale, visualize it going down the spine. And these guys get to such a level of competency with this that they're able to do it. They get into that state very quickly, and in fact, with mastery, they can enter it at will. They could walk among us while in that state.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so at the time that my mother's a fiercely, loyal Irish Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
and she viewed. I have to give her credit for being liberal and flexible enough with me to pursue these things while remaining staunchly loyal to her own catechism, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony of that uh, is revealed in the story about the fairies. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself or how. I wouldn't want to presume how to lead this. I don't know how it would.
You're good.
Show me what to do.
People are enjoying this. I had a question. You know what? I like the fairies and where this is leading to, because I could put my question on the back burner. I like where this is going. Our people love fairies and the fae.
Well, man, it's interesting how, as a kid reading about mythology, I believe that we keep coming back until we get it right. At risk of sounding trite, but to be spiritually, once we don't need to come back, we don't come back. Why? It's a school. This is not our home.
Mm-hmm.
This is an awful place, much of the time. But there's a lot of beauty and a lot of beautiful people. There's something to be learned here, obviously. Nothing is accident or coincidence. But this is not our home. Our home is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Ever was, always will. And we all have our heritage, all of us, from the lowest to that which is not so low. We all have had that access to that. It's our divine right, So my mother allowed me to pursue these things while remaining staunchly loyal to her own religious construct, as it were. And the irony, paradox of that was revealed to me years later when I had returned home. I was a decade in Laguna, from 21 to 31. I was back a few years when my mother had to have some serious surgery. She called me from the hospital in Bethesda, which is just down from Bethesda Naval Hospital on Wisconsin Avenue and Old Georgetown Road, for those who know that area. And I asked her if she was okay. She said, "Yeah, I want you to come down. There's something I need to talk to you about." And it sounded serious. And my mom wasn't one to, she was not given to hyperbole, unlike my humble self. She was really matter of fact kind of gal. And, but when she said something, it was so succinct and full of meaning, Anyway, I go down there to figure out what could possibly be going on that isn't as serious, but it's not dangerous, because she had just come out of this surgery. And when I walked in, she was sitting up in bed with this air of expectancy about her. And she said, "Now I want you, Kevin, to tap a reservoir of self-control that's hitherto laid dormant, and don't talk. Just listen." So I did. She said one day when I was coming back to work, she worked for a law firm. Father and son had run this place for years. And she had gone to lunch to meet a friend of hers and had to take a bus to get to this particular place. She was coming back in the bus. And she stepped off the bus into a world of thatched hut roof, stone buildings from, she said, I would guess like 1200s, 1300s, maybe a little later. At first, I think when I first shared this, I mentioned it was 50 to 60. Well, I don't really know. I just tell you they were very rude, primitive dwellings. And a little tiny woman, like 4 feet tall, just appeared in front of my mother and started jabbering away in Gaelic. As I told Josh on the show, and Monica, my mom knew some of the tongue. But at the age of 6, she was dropped off in the orphanage, and you're only allowed to speak English there. And that's what she spoke. But she remembered some of the words, so there are certain key phrases, and she knew it had something to do with druids. But she was not able to really make enough sense of it to warrant any kind of interpretation. But she said what was unmistakable was the atmosphere, mist everywhere, dragging me. This little tiny woman had so much energy. She was dragging me through this area with all these ancient stone buildings, and one that looked like not a tomb, but not a mausoleum, but it had some kind of spiritual significance. She knew. She says, how I knew this was an intuitive thing. It was kind of communicated to me from the woman without words. It's funny, after so many years, how I remember. Um, anyway, she said, so she said something and gave this kind of what she thought interpreted as a blessing, and then poof, she disappeared. And again, my mom was looking at sidewalk, buildings, hearing traffic, and she hears the bus pull away. And what she thought was 10 minutes was about 10 seconds. Wow. And when she said that to me, that's what really rang true. Because the concept of time, as we all know, in that other place is, if it exists at all, it's markedly different than it is here.
I agree with that. I got to throw this at you because throughout the show, you've talked a lot about Christianity and so forth. Here's the thing. I want to see what your take is on this. A lot of people right now, we've talked about some astral projecting, ectoplasm. We've talked a little bit about some of these things that people can't get their hands around. And a lot of people would suggest, being that we're Christians, that what we're doing is manifesting evil. And I get that question quite often. A lot of others do as well that have other shows.
Manifesting evil, did you say?
Yeah, if you astral project, or if we talk about these subjects, right, the things that you've gone through as a Christian, people suggest that we're not Christian. They suggest that we've got a nefarious side to us. And I get this a lot. I don't know if you do. I mean, I don't personally, I'm not called evil, but people will interject that.
I've been called a devil worshiper for it. So
yeah, we've all been called many names, all of us.
Well,
and the thing is, what's your take on that? Because we are not at all in that category, but people categorize us as that if we're talking about these subjects.
Well, anytime any person, male or female, goes outside of the parameters of a particular topic that has been, expressed or taught in a certain way, there's no telling what could jump off, the accusations and rumors. And I suggest that, Christianity is a little more fluid and flexible than as is taught and shared by many people, that particularly what they call fundamental Christians. And I don't really have a dog in this race. I'm not pushing Yogananda or Kung Fu or anything. I'm just relating my journey and what happened to me and how I was impacted, and the truth. More than anything, I guess, the relativity to all these things, the commonality that binds these so-called separate concepts to one another, that reflect the truth in each other, and I remember Yogananda being, accosted by some old Christian woman. He was New England somewhere, and he said, we in India revere Christ as much as you do, and how would we know that, though, unless we knew people from India? We all have a preconceived notion about this or that, but to hold someone hostage to it themselves, that's a whole conversation. I think that anytime you get outside of the boundaries of a conventional school of thought, you're going to potentially fall prey to criticism. But anyone who presumes to know, that's the person you need to pull up a chair and, really, you got the last word on this? And especially when people tell me they astral project whatever they want to and go here and there and they do this and that, like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but usually, there's a great saying in Taoism: the Tao that could be spoken is their version of Tao is the universal truth. The Tao that could be expressed is not that, not the eternal Tao. Those that know it do not speak it. Those that speak it do not know it. How do you put the infinite in a finite medium? And I brought this up with Josh's show when Christ was asked by Pontius Pilate, what is truth then? Because they were having a conversation that led up to that. Christ remained silent for good reason.
Yeah.
Some people would suggest, though, because if we go out seeking, or maybe not seeking, okay, we have an experience with a Bigfoot, a dogman, or some of these paranormal elements that we, as we were talking early in the show, manifest these things. And they say, and I've been told by certain folks
There's truth to
that
that.
you're manifesting these things, but it's not God's plan. It's Satan's plan. That's why they're attracted to you, because you follow the path of wrongdoing, which I believe is horse manure.
Yeah.
But when these people suggest these things, it makes you think a little bit, right?
Sure.
Because some people have great experiences and some people perpetually have horrible experiences. Is that because of your intention? Is that because of your frequency, your vibration that
I
you
think it's all those
put
things, bro.
off?
I think it's all those things, bro. I think it's also your own personal. And I know that a notion of karma is something that a lot of born again Christians would rail against, and I get that. And like I said, I got in the dog in this race. Don't want to fight with arguing about this or that. I do believe that really karma is cause and effect.
Right.
If you reduce it to get the emotion out of it, the passion of it's cause and effect, and it makes perfect sense when you think about it. But I don't want to go up to, say, an African American and say, well, the reason that you have to be black in this white world is because of the karma. You know what I mean? Just for example, that's you know what I mean? But does that make it any less real, that law? Because that's, or the Irish, for matter, what they went through, Jews, and there's the Creator has a plan, and the plan is for His creation to go forward, despite appearances of the contrary. And all the chaos and things that test our faith every minute. And we have. That's why I think, especially in today's time, when so many things, are coming true from things that we learned from various spiritual books, are bearing fruit right now. Unholy fruit as well as good fruit. These things are all part of the plan of the universe to go forward, to express itself and to evolve in its creation. Creator loves us. Christ loves us. All the spiritual teachers, they all were like us, stumbling, bumbling, trying to do the right thing, be the right person, but lifetime after lifetime, we'll be coming back until we get it right, as I said, and that's hardly an original thought, needless to say. But, what you said about evil, we're living in a time when the mythologies are coming true right in front of us. Look at all these different shows. Now, when Josh was just here, they've got an incredible show. They draw from so many apparently disparate sources, and they're able to weave it to a pretty, common theme, while still reflecting the uniqueness of each of those variant sources, and because that's a reflection of the world. And I think that's the beauty of the times we're in. If we keep an open mind, I don't think that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your own vision, your own, be loyal. Master used to say, be loyal to what works for you while remaining open to others who are equally seeking, just as righteously as you feel you are. Truth,
I can roll with that. I can agree with that. And really briefly, I want to thank Sir Brian Bowden, Gary Spice Sr., Miranda, and Josh Turner for your awesome super chats. Always appreciated. Always, and it's never, I appreciate you guys. It's never expected, you guys. So you guys rock. Thanks for that. And
I want to chime in just really quick.
Chris, I'm not. Yes, chime on in. You can always chime in, Krista.
I've been enjoying the conversation.
I love this show. It's a great, fantastic show tonight.
So, Kevin, you had talked about, BMR had asked you about, it looked down upon and, evil doing type thing. And, my belief is, with like the metaphysics and people with gifts, I feel like if you're doing it for the right reasons, I feel like it's okay. Not trying to do it to win the lottery or, get the numbers like that. But if you're truly doing it to help somebody or to help somebody to get some closure, I think it's okay.
Yeah. Intention, again, is everything. Intention.
Absolutely.
How come that word always comes up? You ever notice that? intentions. It's always comes up.
It's true. I mean, everything he said.
I
about
believe it. No,
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, what you put out, I feel like you also get back, you know, so
Yes.
you put out the pure intentions, you're out in the woods and there's a Bigfoot and you're putting out pure intentions. Well, you know, you're not, hopefully not going to be hurt or, you know, things like that. I believe it's all about your intentions.
I think the trick is
everywhere. Yeah.
I think, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the trick is to not anticipate, you know, when that's going to return to you. You know, you do it because it's who you are, you know, because we don't know. It's not our job, you know, to try and figure out when that is going to come back to us, you know, or if it comes back to all, we do it for the sake of it, you know.
Yep. I just want to chime in because I agree with everything he's been saying.
No, I tell you, this has been a very enlightening show. A lot of great information. I've learned quite a bit today, and this is the reason why we do this. All these shows that I do, Krista, the Blondes and the Boos, Tex, Josh, all of us, you know, it's all about gathering information, you know, and it's a learning experience. Every day I do a show. If I don't learn something, I didn't do my job. And today, I think I learned a lot from you, which I'm going to take a further look at because I really thoroughly enjoyed you coming on.
Are we done?
Yeah, unless you got more. I mean, we go 90 minutes.
Well, I have there's so many things I didn't want to, like, you know.
We can always have you back.
Make the show. It's funny that you mentioned what you're saying. You're ending the show in the way you did, because I had a friend, African American guy, who was like another one of the father figures I had in my life, and he used to say, "We're all first time livers," and it's our, you know, we don't have a blueprint, a crystal ball, to, you know. And I said, well, unless he said, well, it's reincarnation. If you accept that notion, we don't remember our former lives for a reason. If we can remember all the husbands, fathers, loving, we go crazy. So we're given the oblivion, but a whiff of I've been here beforeness to keep us going. And ironically, it was this guy. He was a very heavy spiritual guy himself, but he used to say to me all the time, "I can't find a church that works for me. They're all full of fallacy and hypocrisy." And I said, "I get that, you know," but we would have these impassioned speeches, just like the one we're having tonight. And you know, when he passed, it really leveled me, man. But I had one of those dreams that I have had so many of them. But check this out, guys. I think you'll find this interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had, maybe it's a good way to close the show. But I had a dream. I was back. I've been a musician, you know, all my life, and I was back at this club that I had worked. I had a residence there for about 8 years. In fact, a friend of mine who wrote and created the Underworld movies came in all the time, and we became friends. And that's another part of my story. I haven't got a chance to. A lot of stuff here, but anyway, my friend Bill had passed, and I just was devastated. And there's, you know, I meet people easily, but I don't have a lot of close friends. You know, real friends are really rare in my experience. Anyway, Bill was one. And he used to say, I can't find a church that works for me. I appreciate your fervor, Kevin. You got a good heart, you know. But, you know, this world. And anyway, I had this dream back at the club where I had this residency for so long. And sometimes I wear a sport coat at work. And most of the bluesmen I grew up idolizing were dressed to the nines all the time. Yeah. Anyway, this night in this dream, I got this sport coat on, and I hear the phone ringing. And I open up my sport coat to look in my pocket, and the pocket's sewed shut. But the phone's in there and it's ringing. And meanwhile, I can't find half the guys supposed to hit the next set, you know. And I'm looking around and I'm kind of panicked. And then I see Bill come up from the kitchen, which is a soul food place at this particular club. And he's got a plate of greens and barbecue ribs and sweet potato. And he's looking at me, and he has a very serene look on his face. And he looks at me and he said, "Kevin, I finally found a church that works for me."
Wow.
And I woke up, goosebumps everywhere, and I knew that Bill had given me a visit, you know.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
No, I can expand on that, but like I say, this show usually go about 90 minutes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
You're
no,
good.
man. No, it don't matter if we go over. I just want to make sure I just keep the time all together for other certain things. And I tell you what, man, this is a great show. I love the show. Always welcome back. And of course, the Blondes and the Boos, they're another project for you, I'm sure.
I'd like to come back if you'll have me.
Absolutely.
Always have you back. Yeah, I think the people love you. I think the people love to have you back for another one. We can get into some more things because, you know, frankly, we could probably do this for another 2 hours. with all the information you have. And I know, and I've seen you other places. I'm
I do love
familiar
the
with
sound of my
you.
own voice.
Mhm.
I plead guilty with explanation.
Yeah, you did a great job, and I appreciate everybody on your way out. Again, thanks for the super chats that was given. I already thanked you guys. Hit that like button. Really quickly, Kevin, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you? I know you.
Well, I'm afraid I'm not much of a public figure as I've played
No.
music for 40 years. I don't have anything on YouTube. I have stuff I have to upload, but I have a
You do-
website. I have
Okay.
my email is alleycatblues@hotmail, ALLEYCATBLUES. No fancy spelling. alleycatblues at
Ellie Cat
hotmail.
Blues, everybody. Okay. I'll put
And,
that in the description of this show for
and my
you.
website for my band is www.jukejointjokers.com. And I'm on Facebook under KC Murphy. You see a guy that looks a lot like me with a guitar.
Okay.
And,
I've seen that. Yes.
yeah.
This is a fantastic show, Kevin, man.
Yeah.
I
Thank you. I had
appreciate
a great time. You guys made it easy. I've been in the public. I played in front of 20,000 people at times, but one it always made me a little nervous. But you guys, like Josh and all the guys that are really experienced with this, made me feel very relaxed, and I really appreciate that.
Good.
And it's an honor and privilege to be on the show. Thank you very much.
well,
both.
it's
Appreciate
all
you.
ours.
and thank everyone for showing up. You know,
Yep. Thanks
support
to
these
everybody. They loved you. And really briefly, you guys, tomorrow I'm doing a BMR special, and Krista will be back with me at 3:00 in the afternoon tomorrow. A special show. Seth Breedlove from Small Town Monsters joins the show, and we're talking about his two latest documentaries that are yet to hit the big screen. One is on a UFO abduction with the United States Navy, and the other one is revisiting Ape Canyon. The Ape
Oh,
Canyon
wow.
incident. That's
I'm looking
they're
forward to
doing
that too.
2 movies on that are coming out. The promo is already out
Mhm.
on Small Town Monsters, and he's going to come on over and talk about it tomorrow at 3:00 Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to tune in
Yep.
for that.
Seth is great.
Yeah, and Krista, you guys have the new show, 4 Blondes, 1 Mystery at a Time. That's the name of the channel. It also streams on the Blondes and Booze for now until they grow.
Only for a couple more weeks. And honestly, we just hit 100 subscribers. So we're
That's
really
awesome.
trying to grow that channel. So I'm going to drop the link in chat under your name, Rob.
Okay.
People would show us some love, and please go over and subscribe to our new channel. 'cause
Could you please? I'm sorry. What days do you do the different shows? You're every Tuesday.
My show, really briefly, is Tuesday night at 9.
And you, Krista?
I do Thursday and Friday nights at
Yeah,
7 p.m. Central.
Yeah, I'm
Or 8
Tuesday.
p.m.
Kevin, I'm Tuesday 9:00 at night, Thursday afternoon at 1, Saturday at 11.
Oh,
Wednesday is just a special
Mhm.
for certain folks that are really busy that I feel are worth having on. I do a special show on Wednesday sometimes.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
well,
So
what a,
everybody could go over and subscribe to all of us.
I promise I'll do just that. I try and support all of you guys. You know, I fell into this
Thank you.
ironically only, and that what people, to be specific, cryptozoology, only a few years ago. And man, talk about the rabbit hole. I just was. I think the first thing I saw was American Werewolves. Talk about small time monsters.
Yeah.
I think it's the same people, some of them at least. Anyway,
It
and that
was.
that. And I thought, well, you know what? I had seen. I didn't even get a chance to tell you this. I had my own cryptic experience in Maryland when I went one night to do the Crossroads thing. I didn't even get.
We got to have you back on.
No, you'll be back on. Yeah, we got. We can't do it all in one
I
show.
know.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking of the irony. I didn't even know that Maryland had such a rich cryptozoology background at the time. They have the Goat Man, but yeah, that was a whole. I didn't even get to that. That's jeez. Yeah, well, the world. The point is that the world we're in right now, it's almost as if everything is ramping up. It's like this proverbial snowball going on the hill, getting bigger and bigger, faster and faster. Because, or as I said on Josh's show, it's like someone took Pandora's box and literally turned it upside down and shook it.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's just in the last decade alone.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What a great show. Thank you, guys.
Thank
very
you.
much.
I appreciate you. I'll be getting back in touch with you soon. And I think Krista will as well.
I still got to eat dinner tonight.
She's got to eat dinner. I'm going to say goodbye to you tonight. I got something with Krista really quick, and then, man, I'll send you an email in a little bit.
Me?
All right. Yeah, just look for it tomorrow morning.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, thank you again, and I look
Thank you,
forward
Kevin.
to. Well, now we're friends. I like to correspond with both of you guys. And
Yeah, we will. We'll get in touch.
Sure.
We'll stay in
For
contact.
sure. Yep.
All right.
okay.
Yep.
Good night,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody out there. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night. So that was a great show, everybody. Mr. Murphy, go check him out. And yeah, I liked it, Krista. And of course, your new show, everybody subscribe to.
Mhm.
You put the link down there already, Krista. I'll wait for you to do that before we
Let me
say
do it one
goodbye
more
to everybody.
time here. Yeah, we would
And,
appreciate love
yeah,
because it's the four of us. We just have a lot of good stuff coming up. It's not, I can't really
Yeah.
talk about a whole lot of it right now, but we do. We have some great
Yep.
things coming up, and just subscribe to stay in the loop.
Yep. And also, if you guys notice, I changed the name of my channel to Bigfoot Mystery Rob and Beyond because I got to tell you what, I'm taking going into the new year, we're going to be mixing it up with a lot of things outside of the cryptid realm. And I've already got like 8 new shows booked, which is going to be fascinating. And we're still going to be doing our cryptid stuff. We're not changing our narrative, but there's going to be other fascinating guests coming on this show and on the Thursday afternoon show, which I'm really looking forward to give you guys a variety, which we always try to do. And we've been doing over the last year anyways.
Mhm.
So yeah, on Thursday, anything special Thursday on the Blondes or no?
I actually am not going to be on there. So
That's right.
The four blondes, you'll have Brandy, Natalie, and Mary Lynn on
Okay.
that show. And then on that evening, I believe you'll have Brandy, Paranormal Paul, Tex, and whoever in that one
Whoever pops
wants
on
to
it.
join
Okay.
on. Yeah. So
Awesome.
mhm.
Excellent. You guys don't forget, turn on your alert bell tomorrow. You don't want to miss the show at 3 if you're not working, if you're around, or watch the replay, 3:00, Seth 3
And
Love.
a reminder too, Paranormal Paul moved his Saturday show to tomorrow. It'll debut tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Central.
Paranormal Paul at 8:30. And of course,
Yep.
Monica's show is now on Sunday
Yes.
at
Moved her-
10.
Yep.
She moved to Sunday.
Yep.
A lot to get out. Love you
I
guys.
didn't write this down, man.
I know my memory, my memory's okay. I forgot you guys earlier. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe, of
Good night,
course, all of
everybody.
us. Good night, everybody. As I just have to, here it is. Oh, right there, right in front of me. Good night.
Good night.